From BBC Arabic reporting there. Should the Conservative Party adopt an all-women shortlist when they select a candidate to stand in the seat of Tiverton and Honiton? That was, of course, vacated by Neil Parish after he admitted watching porn in the chamber of the House of Commons. Caroline Noakes, who chairs the Women and Equalities Committee, has argued the Tories must select a woman for the contest to display real evidence of change. Well, Ella Robertson-Mackay is the national chair of Conservative Young Women, and Frances Scott is the founder and director of the charity 50/50 Parliament. Good evening to you both. Ella Robertson-Mackay, Boris Johnson suggested that he wants to see 50/50 gender representation in Parliament. Could all women shortlists help to get there?
Well, thank you so much for having me on. It's such an important issue. I think it's absolutely important that we do everything we can to try and get to gender equality on the Conservative side of the House. But I have to say, I asked my members today, we've got over 1,000 young women who are part of our group, and they vehemently oppose all women shortlists or quotas.
Why?
No one wants to feel that they've got a job on the basis of a diversity initiative. They want to feel that they've got there on their own merit. I think it's really important to understand that the membership of the Conservative Party is fiercely meritocratic, and they are opposed to these measures. And it would be really terrible if you were going forward for example, for the Tiverton and Honiton seat, and enforcing on this local association a diversity initiative that they didn't want. And then you end up being the MP for the association and they don't really want you. They've got to feel like they wanted their MP. And the Conservative system is all about local associations choosing their own representative.
Frances Scott, your charity really wants equal representation for women in Parliament. Are all women shortlists one way to achieve this?
Well, I think what we need in Parliament is the very brightest and the best, to quote Oliver Dowden. And I think half the brightest and the best are women. Canterbury had an all-women shortlist for their candidate selection because all the best candidates were women. I've heard people suggest that all women shortlists are demeaning, but why aren't all men shortlists demeaning? Sometimes all the best people applying for the job might be women. And so I think we need to get used to this. It's very important when you're trying to make change that you set a target.
But I suppose what's at issue here is actively putting together an all-women shortlist as opposed to there happening to be an all-male shortlist, which has certainly been commonplace.
And if I may, the all-women shortlist the Conservatives had in Canterbury just happened to be for women.
Exactly.
It wasn't a diversity initiative. So where all female shortlists happen, because those are the top four candidates because they're women. I think that's super, and I think that's really to be encouraged.
Well,
so
exactly.
where it's mandated is a different issue.
Frances Scott, would you support a mandate?
Well, no, we're not here to tell political parties how to run themselves. But we are here to encourage women to progress in politics. That's what we do with our Sign Up to Stand programme. And we know that there are lots of great women out there. And so it's not an unreasonable expectation or suggestion that there might be an all-women shortlist because there are such great women wanting the opportunity. And the Conservative Party is meant to be a party of opportunity. They should be providing the opportunity for women to stand and for women to get elected.
Ella Robertson-Mackay, Ella Robertson-Mackay, the Labour Party would say that all women shortlists have certainly helped them to be in a situation where there are more women MPs than male MPs.
Absolutely, but they haven't elected a female leader of their party either. So, and conversely, we've had two female leaders, two female prime ministers, but that hasn't necessarily translated to gender representation further down the ranks of the party. So I would say that all of these initiatives have positives and negatives, but I think in the Conservative Party of today, quotas are only going to cause more problems for women and more misogyny.
Frances Scott, you seem reluctant to endorse the idea of all women shortlists. So what is the answer then? How do you persuade more women not only to stand, but to be chosen by local selection committees, which perhaps are more used to sort of young men?
Well, I think at the very least you should have 50/50 shortlists because I think you need to give women the opportunity to stand on the political platform, and you also need to give the selection committees, who are ultimately the gatekeepers, the opportunity to see women. I mean, this really matters because if we want to build a better democracy, then we need women to have their seat at the table. It will lead to better policy and more informed decision making.
Ella Robertson-Mackay, would you support 50-50 shortlists? Presumably they do. They get away from this idea of it being tokenistic or somebody.
I think that would be a reasonable approach. And I think Frances makes a really good point about working with associations to remind them that they don't have to pick an MP straight out of central casting, that being tall and charismatic are not necessarily qualities that qualify you to be an MP. And also then the work that my organisation, that France's organisation and other groups do to encourage people from a much wider diverse range of backgrounds, ethnically, gender backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, so that we do, as Frances says, get the widest range of backgrounds into our policy making.
And what do you say to those who argue actually there's also very urgent issues within the Conservative Party, within the parliamentary party, which need to be addressed? And if there were more women, perhaps some of the accusations of sexism and harassment and so on that have emerged in recent months, they would be, to some extent, stamped out.
Look, I am absolutely all favour in having gender equality on the Green benches, but unfortunately, there's 56 MPs who are under investigation for harassment at the moment, and a good many of them are Labour MPs, and they do have gender equality on their benches. So unfortunately, as much as I would love to say more women in politics is the answer to everything, it's not. But it is an important step to making sure that Parliament is a better place to work.
Frances Scott, would it make a difference?
Oh, most definitely it would. I mean, to get the sexism out of politics, you need to get more women into politics. It was women that called out this porn. The point is that if you're a very small minority, you have to conform to the culture. But when there are more of you around, it's, the safety in numbers. You can call out the bad behaviour. Okay. And that's why this has happened. In the past, people have had to keep quiet. Okay. But we need the brightest and the best. And that's why we need a proper, respectful, representative Parliament. Parliament is meant to be a representative institution.
Frances Scott from 50-50 Parliament and Ella Robertson-Mackay, National Chair of the Conservative Young Women. Thanks very much. The headlines so far on the world tonight. Renewed Russian shelling has halted the latest attempts to bring hundreds more civilians trapped in the Ukrainian city.